Okay. And we're back with light from the Leshem, lessons from the Leshem. We are discussing the answer to the Leshem's giving. Previous class, we were talking about how what our actions are actually doing in creation and the relationship to God. Continuing in this, we're continuing the topic and eventually going to reach the conclusion, even perhaps in this very lesson. Via the creation, the intention of God's names and revelations are completed, but not God himself. Okay, and that's really the final answer to the question that we've been waiting through all these classes up to lesson 9 to finally get to. Via the creation, the intention of God's names and revelations are completed. Okay, now we're going to expand on that and then we'll have questions. It now becomes clear to us, no doubt, what has been clarified concerning the words of the Rav, meaning the Ari, above at the beginning of this essay. Again, go back to lesson 1 and 2, that refers to that, where he discusses that the purpose that God created the world was to complete his names. Again, it now becomes clear to us, no doubt, from what has been clarified concerning the words of the Rav above at the beginning of this essay, that via the creation, the intention of God's names and revelations are completed. This is because this is the manner in which he himself established all his revelations and his holy names, so that they become established, illuminated, and perfected via the deeds of the created beings themselves. All this is the ultimate intention for which he established his revelations and his names. These names are the potentiality and roots of all activity and actions through which he created, fashioned, and made all the worlds, and then he continually guides all further activities and actions via these names. So the names of Hashem, of God, are the vehicles in which everything comes into being and through which everything is maintained. And therefore the completion of these names is the ultimate purpose of as well. He established them in this fundamental order in order to provide illumination to his created beings via his revelations, through the actions themselves performed by his created beings. So our actions, therefore, help to complete his names, so that they may receive their reward in the future and become illuminated by the light that they prepared for themselves, and the delight and pleasure and the splendor of all his revelations and names that have been revealed to them as the result of their good deeds. So here, and then another final answer point here, the original intention and the final result are one, the actualization of the names of God. Again, the original intention and final result are one. God's original intention was to have names and have these names create a world and then have these names completed. And so his goal and his original intention are one. And in Hebrew, we say Sof Ma'aseh B'Machshavat Tchila. And we have a more deeper understanding of what that means. The resulting action comes from the initial concept. Thus, our statements, reading on in the text here, thus our statements also clarify what must be explained further concerning the statements of the Rav above at the beginning of this essay. So now he's going to pull it all together and explain how the Rav is not contradicting in any way the idea, the Rav meaning the Ari, the idea that God's name is creation can be completed without having an effect on his essence. For in his opening, the Rav begins saying, concerning the topic of the ultimate intended result for the creation of the worlds. But at the end of his essay, he clarifies that he is only discussing the underlying reason, the reason for creation of the worlds. What is the reason he decided to create the worlds? This is in the words of the Leshem. He does not refer at all to the discussion concerning the desired results for creation. Yet from our statements above, this point becomes quite clear. So now he's going to imply what the Ari intended when he said this. And so pay careful attention now. So yet from our statements above, this point becomes quite clear. Within the context of the discussion, the desired result of all creation is to unify his names and revelations, to receive illumination, to delight in the splendor of their light, as we have explained in several places in our writings. For this alone is the ultimate purpose and the ultimate end result of creation. is for us to delight in the light of God via our work through connecting to him through doing his will. The names and revelations themselves are the reason too, as the Rav explains. Thus the names and revelations of God, they themselves are the reasons for all of creation. So this is the eternal axiom, as we mentioned above. The original intention and final results are one. They are the same thing. The initial intention to achieve the desired result for every action, therefore, the essential motivation for every action, the final desired purpose for any action is what initiates the action and brings it into actualization. Which is, again, let me read that again because it's important to sink in. It's a bit complicated in English. The initial intention to achieve the desired result for every action, therefore, the essential motivation for every action. The essential motivation for every action is the initial intention. And then the final result, desired result, the purpose for any action is what initiates the action and brings it into actualization. So there's a total connection between the end result and the beginning initial reason for doing it. Thus is the case in our matter concerning his names and revelations. So once he explains that principle, he's going to show how that works with the names of God. Thus, in our case, the matter concerning his names and revelations, they themselves are the final purpose of creation, as we have mentioned before. That is a straightforward matter, since all his names are only for the purpose of the creation and the final outcome of creation. He Kaviyachol created these names in order to create the creation, and the purpose of creation is to complete his names. Therefore, the names are the initiation and the result of the whole ball of wax. So the final outcome in the creation, therefore, he established that all his manifestations would be completed only through the deeds of created beings. By this means only is the intentional outcome of the entire creation completed, perfected, as we have mentioned. Okay, up to there, questions?
Yeah. So
actually, there's just a little bit more, and we're at the end. So let me just read the last little bit, and then we'll get into it, because this is just he's gonna. That was like the complicated part, and now he's bringing it into actual, right? However, all this matter is only referring to God's manifestations. Right. Again, we made this point already before, that all this is manifestation of God, not God. These manifestations were established only to provide for the needs of created beings, so that they may merit to receive the light that they prepare for themselves via their deeds. But apart from his manifestations, which is like a big apart, right? Everything we know and understand are his manifestations. But apart from that, concerning his essence, which we have no clue or concept of, himself, is completely invalid to describe him in any way or indicate that he receives any manner of benefit or completion from the actions of his created beings. God forbid. Okay, questions?
yeah, so I was getting a little confused about the concept of the initial motivation, of just trying to really grasp that the initial motivation itself to bring something about, or to do something, is rooted in that desired goal, that once
Right.
it is, so to speak, achieved. So why again is that the case, that they're so to speak rooted?
So the why he doesn't talk about, because that's a question that you reach a point in Kabbalah. One of the challenges of it is you reach the point of what the human mind can grasp. So the why we don't really know. In other words, we know that Hashem. How do we know that Hashem wanted to do this? There's an empirical understanding of why, because all this manifestation exists. Like the system is here, it exists. So therefore, he willed it into existence. He did it in order to. So the initial impulse is that he wants to have human beings benefit from getting close to him through serving him. And that is understood as being, so what's the root of that? He created, so to say, first of all, his names. And then the names create all of reality. And then when we serve him, we're completing these names. That's the system explained in a very like overview kind of way. So once we complete his names, so by completing his names, the names are also where everything comes from. So therefore, that's the whole thing. Okay, so then you say, so why did he decide to do that? That's already a question that doesn't have an answer. It's not a question that has a possible answer, because that's
So
already
it's not
what is the
necessarily
existence of a God in his essence, and that we can never know.
right. So I would say to like specify myself a bit more. Like not it's not I don't what I mean to ask is not specifically why did Hashem create the universe, meaning in terms
Hmm.
but in its core, but more of of the fact that, meaning the concept that a desired result that is brought about, that it is rooted in the will for that very result in its origin, meaning what is the function of that teaching itself? What's that coming, meaning I feel like I missed the point of what that was coming to show. The fact that the concept of sof ma'aseh v'machshava tchila, meaning, is it coming to say that anything that ended up happening is purely an expression of that will for it to happen, and otherwise it wouldn't have happened? Is that what it's coming to say? That
Yes.
everything is
Yes.
intentional?
Yes. Everything is intentional. Every single thing is intentional.
And that's what the
And
lesson was trying to
we don't always
emphasize
see
there?
it. Yes, and so everything is intentional, and that's very comforting and very scary at the same time. And it also, but that also, we're not always in access to the intention. Here, he doesn't talk about this aspect, but we'll get to it in other classes. Where this is what, if everything that was intentional was completely comprehensible to us, then we wouldn't have free will. So that becomes a function of free will, that intentions are hidden, but we know that they're there. We can't know all the intentions of a God in every aspect and everything that exactly happens, because then we wouldn't have any free will. We would know everything that's happening, and there would be no purpose for creation.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
That's not really what he's talking about here, but that's the answer to your question. So, but I mean, he does talk about that point. That's how I was able to answer the question. Thank God. Okay, let's do the summary, and then next time we'll start a new series on a different topic. So here we go. The summary is like this. In this essay, the Leshem provides us with answers to the following difficult questions. In summary, does God actually need his creation? Did God establish his creation because he needs his creation? And now we know the answer to that is no. Since God is completely perfect in every manner, how can his creation serve any purpose in furthering his perfection? And the answer is it cannot. So then what is the whole point? Since his creation cannot be for the purpose of furthering his perfection, because he is already completely perfect, what purpose then does creation serve? What then is God's intended purpose for the creation of all existence? So the Leshem explains the answer above question in the following manner. 1. God created all the worlds in order to provide his names, and not he himself, with the possibility of achieving complete actualization. He created all the worlds in order to provide his names. His names are brought to completion via the acts of the righteous ones who follow his instructions. Therefore, God ultimately created the worlds for the benefit of the righteous. They receive the reward of receiving his light for assisting in the fulfillment of his purpose, completing the manifestation of his names in created existence. This understanding becomes more easily comprehensible when we notice the three aspects of the Holy One, blessed be he. Again, the first aspect, his true imperceptible essence, blessed be his name, for he is all and in all, and as before creation and after creation, etc. The second aspect is the emergence of God's will to become revealed, and the existence of this will, which is also known as the Ein Sof. And the third aspect, which is more comprehensible to us as people that are in a physical existence, is actual manifestation, which is revealed via his great name and monikers. So the initial manifestation are God's names, which then from that comes out all creation, the worlds, plants, trees, rocks, angels, etc. These three aspects provide us with a framework through which we can resolve the above-mentioned contradiction concerning God's intention for his creation. Then, too, through these three aspects, we are provided with the means to comprehend the underlying reason and intention of God's decision to create all existence. His essence, his will are complete, perfect, and unchanging. His will comes forth from his essence and is manifest via his names. His names are the means by which he manifests into his creation. His names become completed via the actions of the righteous ones, whom receive the reward for his light for helping complete his manifestation in creation. God intentionally made his revelations and manifestations of all his holy names dependent upon the deeds of Israel. Therefore, all revelation, manifestation from God are only in relation to and for the benefit of his creations and do not affect his essence or will in any manner. God's original intention and final result for creation, therefore, are identical. The deeds of the righteous ones cause God's names and his revelations in creation to achieve completion. These actions of the righteous bring forth the actualization of the names of God, but not God himself. For God in his essence was, is, and always will be in complete perfection. His manifestations in creation are brought to perfection via the work of his righteous ones. That's it. Any questions before we end today's class?
No, thank you very much. I really enjoyed.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody for joining us here. And just to figure out where the end class button is here. Over here. Okay. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. Hope this was enjoyable. And of course, please write if you have any questions, because it's very important to get this down properly. It's a subtle issues that are essential for understanding what we're doing here and why we're alive and our purpose in creation. Okay, God bless.